So over 6 years ago, I was 30 years old. Was married to my son's mother. And we both had our own traumas. We both had our own personalities, and they just did not connect. They just did not connect. And so I was dealing with a relationship that was, in reality, was killing me from the inside. Because I didn't heal, she didn't heal, right? I jumped into that relationship pretty fast because I was depressed, man. I had depression my whole life. I had anxiety my whole life. I was diagnosed with ADHD at the age of 4 years old. My dad lived right next door in the projects. I could hear him through the wall, but I never saw him. My mom, she took me from my grandparents when I was 2 years old. I didn't even really know who my mom was. I didn't have a connection with her. So I felt like I was abducted. So I realized later in life that I developed like what they call it separation anxiety, where it's like you have an attachment to somebody and now you always need to be with them. My grandparents were like my mom and my dad. And so for the first 2 years of my life, I didn't really know my mom because she was always out. And I feel bad for my mom because what my father did to her and what happened to my mom when she was younger. But, you know, I forgive my mom. I forgive my dad. But when I was taken from my mom, I felt abducted, and I was living in the projects in Pottsville, Pennsylvania, and right next door, my dad then moves in, and I just like, it's a very weird situation if you think about it. Don't know my dad. I don't really know my mom. They're living right next to each other. You could hear my dad through the wall.
And they didn't come. He didn't spend time with you.
No, very, very rarely. And then my mom's boyfriend at the time, my brother Brandon's dad. I love Mike. His name is Mike, and I like to name drop because I like to give people credit.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Like Mike was causing himself a lot of issues. I think Mike had demons he's never healed, and so Mike was abusing certain types of drugs, and there was domestic violence, and it's just like, fuck, man. Like I know I didn't have it as bad as most people. Like there are people in Palestine right now, Ukraine right now, people all over the world that are just suffering for the sake of evil's greed, right? And it all starts in the home, brother. Like, you shouldn't have children if you're not going to love them, you know? And that's coming from God. That's not coming from me. Like, God put that in my heart, and I could feel that. And you know, some days I'm not the best dad myself, you know, and I feel really guilty for it. Like I might try not to cry right now, but you take a nice deep breath in, you regulate your thoughts,
Do your best, yeah.
and you say to yourself, what is the best thought I think about myself? And I think that I'm a good person because I give the effort to. I give the effort to be a good person. And so with that said, going back to my mom and my dad and hypnotherapy, is I carried anxiety and depression. I was medicated at the age of 4 years old for ADHD. Ritalin is an evil drug you should not give to anybody, specifically kids, when they're still developing. And I was on ADHD medication until I was in 5th grade. We didn't eat food, man. Like, we ate once a day, and it was McDonald's dollar burger or Burger King dollar burger. That's not food. That's not food. So when you give a kid fake food and then you medicate them with an amphetamine that has the same exact results that meth would give, what do you think happens to that kid's psychology? What do you think happens to that kid's physicality? They decay. They're not growing. They're decaying at a young age.
Dependent already on the brain becomes dependent on that. So, like, you know, a lot of those guys grow up to go on other stuff, right?
Yeah. So for the first 2 years of my life, I didn't know who my mom was. And then when I met my mom, I was afraid of her, and I didn't like being with her because she was struggling. She was in survival mode. My dad, living right next door, was in survival mode, right? And I'm doing my best not to shun my mom or dad right now.
Right.
Because there's certain things I could say.
Yeah.
But basically, go on.
I was saying you forgive them, and you're in a way it seems like you flipped into a positive thing, right?
Hey,
and it's making you helping others because of that trauma, and that's beautiful.